I started at 7 years old. I caught my first snake when I was 7 and started keeping corn snakes, and grew up down in Broward County area, Broward County, Florida. Living out in the west section of Pembroke Pines. It was still very rural at the time. And growing up all through high school, I caught snakes and sold them to pet stores. In 1997 is when the real blow up on the ball python started. The craze went nuts. I mean, people, they paid up to $150,000 for one animal at that point in time. Now the top dollar animals are in that $10,000 to $15,000 range. But the ball pythons are just all over the place because it's the perfect snake. It looks like a snake. It's got a nice head on it. Most of your colubrids have a very slender, worm-like looking head, and it's an impressive, thick-bodied snake, but it's not too big. At an average of 3 to 5 feet, anybody can keep it. It's not a threat. We're not looking at a whole lot of legislative problems keeping this species. And now that we have all the color and pattern mutations, there's nothing as diverse in the reptile industry, and maybe as far as animals on the planet go, as what we can produce with the ball pythons. I'm going to show you a couple of animals right here that Graziani Reptiles has been known for producing. We've basically built our reputation. These are the pastel jungles. And back in 1997, we produced the very first pastel jungles, and it happened to be the very first what most people are considering a co-dominant trait. When I bred the original male that looked like these animals here to the normal, we expected to get heterozygous offspring, and we got 7 eggs. And what really threw us for a loop was we got 7 pastels that hatched out of that clutch. We found out later on that it should have mathematically been a 50% clutch, and we hit 100%. So we didn't know if we had a fully dominant mutation or what we had at that period of time. When we bred for our mutation, there's a number of pastel jungle bloodlines out there. There's Nerd's Lemon Pastel, there's the Blonde Phase. This is known as the Graziani Pastel line. And what we bred for in our line is the blushing colors in the dorsal pattern on the back. Now, when bred together, they produce the Super Pastel. And we'll get to that in a minute. I have a small baby of those. And all of this blushing on the Super Pastel is a lavender color when it hatches out. The second mutation that we were known for is the Cinnamon Pastel, which has kind of lost the name pastel and is now just known as a cinnamon. The reason we called it a Cinnamon Pastel is because there were a number of other animals people were calling cinnamon at the time, and they didn't prove out to be genetic. And this had some similarities with the pastel jungle as far as the eye striping and the clear belly or ventral side of the snake. And when we first produced it, everybody looked at it and said, well, you know, it's kind of just a brown snake. It's an earth tone snake, and it didn't get any notoriety. They just looked at it and said, yeah, well, it's definitely genetic, it's definitely something different, but people want pretty, they want bright. Well, when we took this snake and bred it to the pastel jungle, the outcome was this animal here, which we call a pewter pastel. And as a hatchling, this animal is pewter colored. And the way it got its name was as we were holding it out of the egg, it crawled across a picture frame that was pewter, and it matched it perfectly. As the animal matures, you notice some of the pastel coloration coming up in it. As a baby, this was just a silver and black animal, and now we're getting some color in this animal. Once these were produced, we couldn't produce enough cinnamons. The cinnamons at that time were $10,000 a piece, and we could not produce enough of them because everybody wanted to make pewters at that time. And so out of the hundreds of ball python mutations, and probably 50 or so that we've produced, these are the 3 biggest that we are known for in the industry. And on other reptile websites, in reptile books, those are the things you will normally see the Graziani name behind the Cinnamon Pastel and the Pastel Jungle. Okay, this is the Super Pastel. When 2 of these are bred together, this is the heterozygous state of the animal. This is the homozygous state. And what I was talking about with the blushing, you can see on the head here, and all of the blushing areas down the back of the snake are very lavenderish in color. Again, luckily, we were not the first person to produce this mutation, but the second year, we were the first person to produce a male, which put us 2 years ahead of the competition in breeding. When this animal is bred to the wild-type ball python, 100% of the babies come out as pastels. So it's really a powerhouse breeder in any collection.